SexyHackers.com.
Once upon a time, there were a few young girls with a passion for literature, a love of the written word, an inspired infatuation of... Okay, fine. We were a bunch of super dorks with no friends. We spent all day hiding out in our rooms, reading books that were maybe a little inappropriate.
Hello and welcome to a very special Valentine's Day edition of Who Let Me Read This? Yay! That's right, to celebrate all things love in this month of love, we're gonna talk about Twilight. Oh! Specifically New Moon by Stephenie Meyer. And I guess you can probably already tell my feelings about this book, but
it's very long.
It's very long, but
yes.
Before we dive into this gem right here, let's meet our panel for today, who all decided that they wanted to talk about Twilight. There was quite the fight to get a spot on this.
Yeah, we were like, should we have a special guest? This person could join us. This person could join us, and then everyone was like, no. I have so much to say.
So on my right, we have Miss Andrea Roedel-Schroeder, who the Hulk of the group.
Strap in. Got a lot of yelling to do.
Next to her, Miss Michelle White, whose mom forced her to love these books.
I guess. No, I didn't love them.
Oh.
Whose mom loves these books?
I actually never read it, but my mother read all of them and was really into the Twilight books. She's read them all several times.
Oh my goodness.
Woof.
And super passionate about this, Miss Sarah Wallisch.
Hello.
Like, we have to talk about this dysfunctional book for Valentine's Day.
Yes, I was like, if we're talking about Twilight, we're gonna read New Moon because it's the worst one, and they're all bad. The most infuriating.
It seems like it would be the worst.
It's not the most weird, but it's definitely the most rage-inducing.
Yes, and boring.
Right?
Like the others
so
are
boring.
weird, which works in their favor because like the weirdness at least gives you a reprieve from the garbage emotional abuse. You can focus on the wacky vampire hijinks. And
It's like if The Two Towers was boring and also about an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
It's that middle book.
yes, if Frodo had like completely undiagnosed, untreated PTSD and attachment disorder,
I mean, doesn't he?
he doesn't wake up from screaming nightmares and
That's true. That's true.
That's true.
Oh my God,
does
I
have
can't.
hallucinations, I guess, but that's a whole other thing.
Fair enough. So we are indeed jumping in. We're starting the series covering the second book in the Twilight series, completely skipping over the first for my own sanity.
Everybody
and
knows what the first book's about.
Do they, though? Do we maybe want to recap it? Because there's some of us who had never read this before. Yeah, I know. Just us, Michelle.
Lucky
That
ducks.
was in the world.
Yeah.
Luckily, I came
I'm not gonna lie, I
prepared.
struggled.
Perfect. All right, so
With a
let's-
recap.
Yeah, let's recap what happened before we dove into this book.
All right, Twilight, book 1 of the Twilight series. Bella's a super klutzy girl who moves to Forks, Washington, the cloudiest city in the country, to live with her dad so that her mom can travel around and have lots of unbridled, passionate, sexy times with her hunky boyfriend, I assume.
Go, Mom.
Yes. Team Mom.
Forks is chilly and rainy all the time, and Bella knows she's not going to make any friends because she's so awkward and pale.
Oh.
Just kidding. Every boy in her new school thinks she's so beautiful and so interesting. And so she spends all her time willfully misunderstanding guys who are trying to ask her on dates and also tripping over things. Bella's dad, who's a DILF, is best friends with Billy Black, a Quileute elder, and the dad of Jacob Black, who is a year or two younger than Bella. The Quileute are a real Native American tribe from that area.
Oh.
Extra tacky.
There's opinions about all of that representation. But anyway.
Are they real werewolves?
Right. So Bella's dad's best friend, Billy Black, is the father of Jacob Black, who is a year or two younger than Bella, and also has an obvious crush on her. The only boy who doesn't like her is Edward Cullen, who's so dreamy, But he looks like he's trying not to throw up every time she comes near him and glares at her all the time.
He really does. It's amazing.
Jacob tells Bella a Quileute legend about a treaty between their tribe and the Cullens that says that they can't go on each other's land, and how the Quileute are sometimes werewolves, and also they protect against the cold ones, and he hints that Edward's family are the cold ones, and also are the same Cullens from the legend, not the ancestors of them, but the same ones. The same ones. Click, 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 click. The wheels snap into place. Bella figures it out. Turns out Edward doesn't really hate her. He's just a vampire, and she smells really delicious. Womp womp.
Yeah, I make that vomit face when things smell delicious.
So Edward saves Bella's life a couple times because she is so clumsy, and every man wants to fuck her, and there's nothing more dangerous than that combination. So Edward's family are all vampires, but they don't eat people. They only eat animals. Edward's dad / sire is Carlisle Cullen, Forkstown hunky doctor, who's super old and used to hang out with vampire royalty, and he spent hundreds of years conditioning himself to be able to be around blood so that he could be a doctor.
Really?
Why not, I guess.
Go doctor.
There is a shortage in the medical field, so I mean,
true.
props.
Dentist, much less blood. Anyway.
Well,
And
bleed a
that's
lot.
true. Let's see. I don't
What's
know.
going on with your gums, Andrea?
Girl, you need a floss. Anyway, Carlisle's wife Esme has basically no character traits besides being really nice. Then there's Rosalie, who's also sired by Carlisle, and her husband Emmett. Rosalie's one character trait is that she doesn't approve of Bella. And then there's Jasper and Alice, neither of whom were sired by Carlisle, but who both have extra vampire powers. Jasper can influence people's mood, and Alice can see the future, except not what's going to happen, but what will likely happen if nobody makes any different decisions to take them off of the path that they're currently on.
So, like, everyone's general guess.
Which is, it's kind of a flawed
Using-
superpower.
And they introduce like 18 more stipulations in this book that we'll get to that are powers like extremely specific and unhelpful.
And Edward's superpower is that he can read everybody's mind except for Bella's, which makes her more interesting, I guess.
Sure.
Yuck.
So they start dating. Except they don't just start dating. They're so in love. They are soulmates. They have a love for the ages. It's super problematic. There's lots of imagery about Bella needing to be near him and feeling empty without Edward, and it's really gross. So they're dating. They have the most codependent, problematic relationship possible, but they're also not getting busy. They're not even like having hot makeouts because Edward still wants to eat her and not in a fun way. In like a dinner way. By the way, he is like 100 years old and sparkles in the sunlight, which is why they live in the cloudiest city in the United States. So some other vampires, Laurent, James, and Victoria, who do eat people, come to town. They get one with Bella, and they're like, nom, nom, ring-a-ding, soup's on. But the Cullens are like, no, you can't eat her. They're not happy about it. And since Edward can read minds and Alice can see the future, they know that James is going to try and eat her anyway. So they lie to Charlie.
Again, we could have just figured that part out.
Right.
Without superpowers.
Like, obviously, they're vampires that eat people, and she's a person who smells delicious. Like, why wouldn't they try to eat her?
Trying to steal Sookie's powers.
Anyway. So they lie to Charlie. They tell him that Bella's moving to go back and live with her mom. Alice and Jasper take her away to try and hide her and keep her safe. James finds out where they are, obviously, and he tricks her into slipping her protectors and meeting him alone at her old dance studio, which is mentioned like once after an entire book about how clumsy she is. Apparently, she also does ballet. I don't know.
Sarah's particularly bitter about this point.
Come on now. So James beats crap out of her, and he bites her, and the Cullens get there just in time to be like, oh shit, I want to eat her because her blood smells so delicious. But also, let's kill this dude. So they kill James while Edward and Carlisle deal with the Bella situation. Because vampires apparently have venom.
That is like one of my favorite
Yeah.
plot points of this whole series, and it gets very little attention. Is like they literally have venom that like
Once you get bitten, the venom starts to seep into your system, and that's what turns you.
Yes.
Like mosquitoes, how it makes you itchy.
No, it's
Just there.
acid.
Not my favorite interpretation of the vampire myth. Sorry, Stephenie.
Fair.
So to stop her from turning into a vampire, Edward sucks the venom out of her wound like she's been bitten by a rattlesnake on the Oregon Trail. And hooray, she's saved.
Yay!
Except for having all kinds of other injuries.
Oh.
So they take her to the hospital, obviously, where they tell her parents that she fell down the stairs and through a glass window. Because that's believable.
She is pretty clumsy.
I do.
And
know
no
a
one
girl
thinks
that
it
that
sounds
happened to.
suspicious because she's so clumsy. She's so clumsy.
So dang clumsy, you guys. She just fell down the ding dang stairs.
And
window.
I'm pretty clumsy. I don't think it would surprise people.
This
I
is
fell
true.
down the
I did
stairs.
fall down a lot of stairs.
So book 1 ends with Bella being mad that Edward didn't let her turn into a vampire so that they could be together forever. But he just loves her too much to do that to her poor human soul. Can't she see he's a monster?
Hate it.
Hate it a lot. And then Edward tricks her into going to the prom with him. The end.
Yes.
What?
Why
Yeah.
does he even want to
And
go to prom?
abrupt.
It is a weird anticlimactic ending.
That is her jam. Every single one
Yeah.
of these books is 400 pages of build-up and then like 5 pages of resolution. That's usually just like a conversation.
Yeah.
And then nothing. And then prom.
She almost dies.
Yep.
Prom.
Prom.
And then womp womp, I went to the prom on accident.
Do you think Stephenie Meyer wrote like 2,000 pages? She wrote all these books all in one, and then they made her like chop
Split
them
'em
up.
up.
And so
No.
it's awkwardly edited.
She actually, I believe, started with the general plot for Eclipse and worked her way back, if I recall
She
correctly.
started, according to Wikipedia.
Oh.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Let me find this because I'm going to get it wrong if I don't look at it. According to Wikipedia, that's not where it's written. Okay. According to Wikipedia,
Which is always correct.
number 1, the idea for Twilight came to her in a dream.
Of course it did.
It took her like a couple months to write the first book.
Oh, yeah.
She started with in the middle of the first book and then
what it
worked
was.
from the middle to the end and then went back to the beginning and like filled it in from the beginning.
It shows.
And she had a second book planned and then the publishers were like, but we need a book about them like going to college or something like that. And so then she went back and put in New Moon. I assume New Moon and probably part of Eclipse in the middle.
Okay.
Which makes me wonder about like what the original arc of the story was, because if her original plan was just the first book and the last book, that's a weird story.
I mean,
Really,
it still
'cause they
is.
fall in love, get together, have a baby. The baby's superpower baby.
Yeah.
If you skip this, nothing is wrong with it.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
This much of the book is her like laying on the ground in the
Right,
woods.
like nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So now then they start, okay, now, all right, we're back together. We're back where we started. You're going to be a vampire someday, according to this vision.
Yeah. And then Eclipse, so many things happen and none of them matter.
yeah, I don't remember anything about Eclipse.
Eclipse is
Maybe
badass.
I didn't read. I don't think I read the book for either of the last 2, but I did see all the movies.
Like, Eclipse is by far the plottiest of them, and it gets a lot into the world building and the mythology and the backgrounds of other characters, which nobody cares about because it's Twilight. And
Which
all-
actually leads me to believe that that definitely was one of the books that she inserted.
Oh,
Where she was like,
absolutely.
I don't know what else to have them do, so let's give you some background on everyone else.
Yep, and frustratingly, it's the best part. She clearly does not care about it at all.
Stephenie. All right, fair enough. Well, before we dive into New Moon, now that we're caught up on the storyline and they've been to prom and she's angry about it, let's take a quick break from our sponsors here at the Sexy Hacker Studio, who were awesome enough to provide this sweet space for us to bitch about stuff in.
And bitch, we will.
And we will. And be sure, while during this break, go ahead and like and subscribe to our podcast here, either streaming on the Sexy Hackers site or on YouTube or the podcast player of your choice. Go ahead and do that right now. We'll be back in just a second.
We'll wait.
SexyHackers.com.
And we are back to Who Let Me Read This, the ridiculous podcast where a group of us get together to discuss the ridiculous books of our past or things that we never want again in the future.
Or that we never
This
read
book.
before, but now we're sad we did.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this book is a little bit of revenge for me making you guys read Blubber last month. And you're like, oh yeah, Laura, I'm going to shove New Moon down your throat. I'm like,
Right? Oh, don't worry. I think we should probably, like, maybe next Valentine's Day come back for the last book.
All right, fair enough.
I mean, at least the last book has a lot more action.
There's 3,000% more plot in Breaking Dawn than there is in New Moon.
Yeah. So in New Moon, in reading this, and that was my challenge, because everyone's made a huge deal about Twilight and for years, and I've never read it. It was just wrong timing of when it came out in my life. It wasn't appealing to me. But it kicks off that, so Bella and Edward are still together after the first book, and she really wants him to turn her into a vampire so they can be together forever. But he won't do it.
Rude.
And we talk about this for like 100 pages.
Yeah. So many pages.
Holy cow. And he doesn't want to for various reasons. Like, he doesn't want to hurt her soul.
Yeah, he's got a whole hang up about not wanting her to be soulless, even though
I just don't get it.
No, it's 1,000% bullshit.
If he's
but-
soulless, how are they soulmates?
Ooh, got him.
There's
burnt.
There's a lot of stuff that
Idealism?
isn't
Yeah.
really explicitly religious, but there are
Yeah.
a lot of like very religious overtones.
Yeah, it's not about what
In
it's
the book.
about. It's about other things.
And then you're like, oh, Stephenie Meyer is Mormon. And you're like, oh, okay.
All makes sense.
Forevers. But I don't know. So has Edward never had a girlfriend before?
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, this is the first girl that he's dated. How old is he? He's like 100
He's
years old.
111, I
I
believe.
can't take it.
He was 17 when he died.
So do you just mentally stay 17 forever, like you're stuck? Because if you were 100, you'd be so over that. You would be
Presumably,
like,
he went
no,
to
thank you.
Harvard, he said, like...
And then they want to go hang out in high school. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, what does this 17-year-old dullard have anything to offer you? Are you kidding me?
So he's hanging out in high school. They're sitting through, Romeo and Juliet for the 100 millionth time, I'm sure, because he's been to high school a bunch of
He
times.
knows it by heart, you guys.
Don't be that guy. Don't.
Everybody hates the guy who's like, I know all of the Shakespeare works by heart. Nobody likes that guy.
They watch
Nobody
it
likes
together,
him.
and he whispers Romeo's lines into her ear. Sir?
I can't stop making the puke noises. I'm sorry.
I know. And this is actually coming from a group of women who regularly perform with a Shakespeare troupe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
We are super passionate about.
I also hate it when people say it on the side, though. Like, okay, we get it. You know King Lear well.
So true. So true.
She's not
Which, yes, go check out Boozy Bard Productions
yeah.
in March when we
Yes.
come back. Side note. Anyway. So now it's Bella's 18th birthday, which
She's
like,
so old.
She's so old.
She's so upset about it.
She's so mad, you guys. She has an existential crisis because, as she puts it, she will now always be older than Edward because he died when he was 17, which is not how this fucking works.
I don't know. I might feel the same, though. I mean, like, no. That would irritate me.
I hate it, you guys.
I mean, I realize, like, technically he's not, but, like, kind of technically he is now.
He's always gonna look young.
right?
And that's a 17-year-old girl does not look any older than a 17-year-old boy, and an 18-year-old girl doesn't look any older than a 17-year-old girl.
You
She's
wonder
a
if-
teenager. Like,
If it's like death becomes her, though, when you get like all the beauty. You know what I mean? As soon as you're a vampire, then you're like hot again.
They
even if
do.
you're older. It
is-
depends on the series.
Yeah.
It's an established thing in this universe that when you are turned into a vampire, you do become your most beautiful self. Because
Then how
in
are
Breaking
the-
Dawn, she's suddenly like super fine, even though everybody thought she was super fine to begin with.
Yeah.
But it does say that they look a bit older. they look 25 while the rest of them look 17, which...
Well, he was 17 when he died, but it was in the 1920.
Yeah.
And he had
That's like 40.
He died of Spanish influenza. Like, I guarantee you his life was hard. And he looked
look
older than she does at 17.
His true age is like 39. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's
What
a
was
lot
life expectancy
of
when he
yucky.
died?
17. That was it.
He hit it.
Yep, he was good. So Bella's over traumatic 18th birthday, and the Cullens dare to throw her a party.
First of all, how dare you?
Rude.
Second of all, how dare you?
She's so upset. She doesn't want anyone to celebrate her birthday, and she's all upset someone threw her party. And she opens
Ungrateful.
she's opening a present from the Cullens, and she gets a paper cut with so much delicious blood. Apparently comes out that Jasper cannot contain himself, and he tries to attack her because she's so tasty, and everyone freaks out, especially Edward.
He yeets her across the room.
Just like
He does. He like throws her across the room to keep her out of Jasper's grasp.
Let me keep
Through
you
a
safe by
glass
mortally injuring
table
you.
or something.
Yep.
Like crashes into a bunch of glass vases and blood everywhere, and she has a huge cut. Like,
yeah,
you're making it worse, dude.
it's terrible, just ridiculous. So now after this disastrous birthday party, the Cullens just decide to move away. They're like, yep, we're
Bye.
done. You know what? That was bad. We almost ate you.
They're cutting their losses.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, we're out of here.
And so Edward takes Bella out into the woods.
And kills her.
No.
The end.
Ties her
Series
to a
over.
Mentally killed her.
shoves her off to the side. He's like, go on, nobody wants you here. Go on, get out of here. Kid.
Go on now, get.
He's such a better option.
Old
No.
Bella.
Oh, he tells her that he's leaving because he doesn't love her. What? And Bella is so distraught. She wanders around in the woods and cries on the ground until nighttime when a search party goes out looking for her. And the whole town is just up in arms that a teenage girl's been missing
For like 6 hours.
Okay, to be fair, I don't think that this is in our plot points, but there's a whole kind of subplot in this book that there is a bear that's been attacking hikers or something.
I don't think they've
In
said
the
that
woods.
yet, though.
They have not said it yet, but we
haven't
find out
said
later
that.
that
No,
the Quaaludes have been like
Yeah.
patrolling.
Yeah. And hikers have been like seeing these big animals and
Yeah.
whatever.
They dated for 6 months, and he broke up with her, so she laid down to die in the woods.
The desperation of this child is so infuriating. Like, I can't, like, what's that song? How do I live without you?
I
remember-
just don't.
Yeah.
right.
My mom used to say to me that she hated that song because it was like the worst message ever. Like, you'll be just fine. What do you mean, how do you live? You get up and you go to work.
Miss White, why did you enjoy these books then?
Right.
And like somebody
But
says
it's what it is. Like,
I'm
oh,
leaving
stop
because I
it.
don't love you, like the correct response to that is like screw you, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sounds like a good choice. If you don't love me, then we shouldn't be in this relationship. See you never.
Easier
Bye.
said than
Well,
done.
I mean, yeah, and very much easier said than done, but
It's not to lay down and die.
No, it's not to lay down. Nor is it to not be able to breathe because of the hole left in your body.
your body.
Yep.
I need to
Your
wrap my
metaphorical
arms
body.
around my torso so that the hole in my body.
When my high school boyfriend of 6 months broke up with me by hitting on my best friend, Charming. On a camping trip we were all on together.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not curl up and die. I confronted him in front of a beach full of people and I slugged him. And I heard my
Nice.
dad from the water be like, "Way to go, kiddo." Yeah, Andy, I bet that still hurts. That's how you handle things. That violence is wrong. But yeah, it's 6 months.
Yeah.
And he's
yes,
111. I did the math. I was talking to my colleague, Liza, and screaming about this book a lot. I'm so sorry, Liza. Don't listen to this because you've already heard it all. I did the math. They were together for like 0.04 or 0.004% of his life. Move on. And that's like 100 pages of the book. Yep. This whole first section is just her being absolutely devastated and unable to cope with this breakup.
The over and over going say, and then I could feel the emptiness again. And
there's
she
a lot of
fills
the hole
it with
in my
other
chest.
men.
Yep. Yeah. She's
so
a zombie.
mean.
It's very, very upsetting how traumatized this
Oh,
girl
then he
is.
walked away and I felt it again. Well, heaven forbid you feel a little bit of
She like runs out of a movie theater because there was people in love on the
Kissing.
screen.
Yeah.
So horrible.
It's a lot.
There is something that I do really like about the way that the book is formatted.
Yes.
For this section. Like during her
Fugue state.
4 months of a fugue state. In the book, the chapter, there's like chapter headings, October. And then the next page just says November. And the next page just says December. And the next page just says January. And then it's like another chapter, which I do like. I like that as a narrative choice to represent that like she spent 4 months just like basically catatonic. And that's probably the last nice thing I'll say.
Yeah, I think so much of it is summed up in general, both that and I feel so much of her internal monologue is very profoundly accurate to immense depth of mental health instability. Her thought processes, even before the breakup, are so indicative of somebody struggling with unchecked anxiety. She's obsessing about what everything means and what people aren't saying and every possible outcome of things. And then after she's left, she, again, describes herself as numb and as a zombie, and she's going through the motions. And it's all so heartbreakingly accurate and representative of somebody who is in a major depressive episode, who has genuine trauma. She has screaming nightmares. She has like straight up dissociative episodes. And it struck home of like, this is what I was like in the darkest periods of my life. You should not feel this way because the boy you dated for 6 months broke up with you.
And I don't think that she feels that.
Exactly.
I don't think she feels that way because the boy she that she loves broke up with her.
No.
I think she feels that way because she almost died.
Exactly.
She was almost murdered.
Yeah, there's so
And
much
they're
trauma
like-
that's never dealt with. And her
But anyway.
I mean, if she was a real person, I think this author thinks that's why she feels that way.
Yeah, it is. It's portrayed as very romantic. It is as a result of her true love.
Stephenie,
abandoning
what
her.
happened to you? Who hurt you?
That's the thing. Like Stephenie Meyer at some point went through a terrible, terrible dark period in her life where somebody should have stepped in and gotten her psychiatric and psychological help and didn't. And it led to this fucking book.
And now she likes mean guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I think that kind of ties to all of us had some very similar WTF moments for this book specifically around this character needing psychological help and really how upset we all were that Stephenie Meyer's portraying this type of behavior as romantic.
In a book for teens, I think is so much more insidious because so much vampire fiction in general portrays these sort of dangerous relationships as romantic. It's never great, but it's even less great when your book is for young women who are
normalizing that.
Yes, this forms the idea in their head that men will treat them this way and it is okay because men will treat them this way.
strive for it.
Yeah, not okay.
That,
like
someone making you feel this way is something to achieve and is not a huge red flag.
yes. And I shouldn't say men.
You mean
people
he
will
left you
treat
and said
this
he
way.
didn't love you and
Humans.
never spoke
They're
to you
garbage.
again?
Yeah,
all bad.
that's what's true romantic love is. And we all had
explanation.
right? We all had those insane bonkers feelings as teenagers when a relationship went wrong. I mean, you all
I still do.
Yeah, it happens.
It's natural.
But shouldn't we be embracing teaching teenagers to say like, okay, your hormones are jacked, you know? So you need to dive into logic in these moments. You need to embrace logic and accept that it's not over. Your world's not over. It's going to be okay. You're going to move forward.
And cope with things, find coping mechanisms, and address your trauma. And
laying in the moss for 12 hours.
Right. Is not an approved therapy technique.
Moss therapy?
I think that this is like an extreme example of like something that our society already gets wrong about romantic relationships. Like this idea of someone completing you and of love being consuming, and like that's not,
and he's extraordinary.
That's not aspirational. That's not like that's not lasting.
It makes you think he's just not that into you. So he left you and says he doesn't like you. That doesn't mean he loves you more. That means he doesn't like you.
No,
and that's like such a confusing message.
And when he's there, he's controlling.
Yeah,
and you have no agency in anything. Like, yes, it's a dumb birthday party. I did still get mad about it because she told everybody I don't want a birthday party, but just like Edward has zero respect for her agency at any given point in this story. It's the same thing with the Cullens to a lesser degrees. You don't want a birthday party, but we want to give you a birthday party, so you're getting one. She has no control over anything, and it's presented as romantic, which is yucky.
One of those things too about say what you mean, and or is she really saying I don't want a birthday party?
Yeah,
I don't want it, but I do.
Hate it. Hate it a lot.
Which one is it?
All right, so now that we're all really good and fired up about this, we're going to come back to this next week for the next part in our series of New Moon, the Twilight series. So
there's a little more plot, but not that much.
Oh my gosh, lots of rage.
True.
It's more time for us to rage.
Exactly. And a big thank you to Sexy Hackers for giving us this awesome space and some wicked fun t-shirts. Andrea, I couldn't help but notice you went topic appropriate.
I did. Let's see.
I'm a vampire. Nice. With a sweet bomber jacket over the top.
It kind of seems like you're breastfeeding blood.
Well, with lactating blood would be
normal.
It's actually just bleeding.
Yep.
I guess.
Fair enough.
If you have a vampire baby.
Thank you very much to Sarah Wallisch, Michelle White, Andrea Roedel-Schroeder. I'm Laura Holterman, and we will join you guys next week to continue to rage on.
SexyHackers.com Stream Team.